The video you're about to see first aired on the Chat Sports YouTube channel, but all of our different NFL draft coverage from all the different channels will be available here. So if you love the draft, hit that sub button right now. You're watching NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey. We have a new NFL mock draft to react to from The Athletic's Dane Brugler. Not just one round. It is 2 rounds, by the way, based on the current NFL draft order. So we'll go a little bit quicker on all the picks, so it's not a, hour-long video. Number 1, it's Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. We'll see what happens in Chicago. No decision made yet, but they're going to have to make a call here in the not-too-distant future. I would reset and try to rebuild around. They kept the head coach. It's all very complicated. Williams will give some Fields trauma of he's relies a lot on out-of-structure stuff, but the playmaking he brings is very impressive. Drake Maye at number 2. Commanders are going quarterback. It makes so much sense. You cannot roll it back with Sam Howell. Adam Peters knows that, the new GM. Number 3 is Marvin Harrison. Do you go quarterback or wide receiver? We'll see how the offensive coaching staff gets sorted out here. I would argue Harrison is the best player, I'd say even comfortably, in this year's draft class. Not that far behind him is Malik Nabers. He is an explosive big play machine. He had 34 catches of 20-plus yards last year. So if you're keeping Kyler Murray, and after all these missed assets you've spent on wide receiver, Malik Nabers, I think, is a much, much better bet. Now, if you guys love the NFL draft, then like this video right now. The plan is to do a whole bunch of NFL draft coverage here on the Chat Sports YouTube channel. So don't miss out, but help us continue to grow by liking the video right now. Number 5, Brock Bowers. No GM, no head coach in place. If you want to give Herbert a weapon, I would argue Bowers is either number 2 and probably number 3 for me among your playmakers on offense in this year's class, not including quarterbacks. Rome Odunze, number 6. You might be able to talk me into a quarterback here. There's a chance they just run it back with Daniel Jones. But if you want a different body type on the outside that you don't really have, Odunze can be a legitimate wide receiver 1 for the New York Football Giants. Tennessee's easy. Take the top offensive lineman. Alt and Peter Skronsky on the left side, that's a really good duo moving forward. And there's Jayden Daniels, number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. I think there are some very valid Lamar Jackson comparisons here. Falcons get their franchise quarterback. They have Kyle Pitts. They have Drake London. They have Bijan Robins. Whoever their head coach is should be able to have some success even with a first-year quarterback. I also don't know if Daniels gets to number 8. There might be a team that is quarterback desperate and trades on up. So does Daniels go in the top 5? It's the pinned comment of today's video. If the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Y for yes, N for no. Bears go defensive help here. Dallas Turner, Montez Sweat helps really solidify that long-term outside edge rusher passing duo. The Jets have to be over the moon here. Olu Fashanu can instantly start for you at left tackle. Still got some work to do as a run blocker, but getting him at 10 would be a great pick for the Jets. Number 11, the Minnesota Vikings. Liatu Latu, I am a huge fan of his game. He has 23.5 sacks and 34 tackles for loss in the past 2 seasons. It's a matter of how does the medical check out. If the medical checks out, I would not be shocked if he's the first defensive player taken, and I think Dane's on to something here. 1 defensive player in the top 10. Not an accident. Now, Dane also loves Terrion Arnold, number 12 to the Broncos. You got the Bama cornerback duo now, Arnold and Surtain on the outside. He's a bit more of a ball hockey guy, and I typically like those guys. I think Kool-Aid's better, but I actually like this corner class, not in the top 10, but mid-ish to late-ish round 1. A lot of good players I'm a fan of. J.C. Latham to the Raiders. This might be a trauma warning after the Alex Leatherwood pick. I think Latham is a much better player than Leatherwood ever was. You could play tackle or guard in the NFL. Jared Verse at 14. I don't know what the Saints are going to do. They've spent a lot of assets on the trenches, and the results have not been very good. You're going to throw another one there? Cam Jordan can't play forever, though, is also worth pointing out. Nate Wiggins, 15 to the Colts. kind of a lanky, longer corner. Good short area burst, too. I like Wiggins a lot. I think the Colts could use a legit potential number one corner. Surprise pick here. Byron Murphy II, the DT from Texas. He had a really good season. He's going to test really well as well. On top of that, I don't know if he's going to be a top 16 pick, but I do appreciate the aggression for Seattle, who, much like the Saints, have invested a lot on the defense and don't have the results they need to have for it. The Jags at 17, Byron Thomas, TBD if they bring back Calvin Ridley or not, but this is an outside vertical speed that they don't have a consistent one at right now. Kirk's is a vertical slot player. Thomas is big and athletic and basketball background, and those guys always end up going pretty early. Love the Amarius Mims pick here out of Georgia. You'd probably put him on the right side, but you are almost assuredly going to lose Jonah Williams. Love that pick there for Cincinnati. All upside piece. The talent makes it worthwhile. And then a surprising, intriguing one. J.J. McCarthy to the Los Angeles Rams. I think actually would be a really good fit for McCarthy. He can sit for at least a year, if not more, behind Matthew Stafford. He gets to go to Sean McVay. I think that the tools and intangibles are going to make him a very appealing prospect, although I was very much annoyed by ESPN's constant coverage of, the meditation stuff. That's going to go over well with coaches, but they just hammered it home way too much. He's definitely a more mature 21-year-old than you would normally see. But does he go in round one? Get your votes in for me in the comments section. Does the Michigan national champion go in the first round? 1 for yes or 2 for no. Cooper DeJean is one of my favorite prospects this year. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can play safety. He can do special team stuff. I love the flexibility there. And Pittsburgh needs more cornerback help, so no complaints there. Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon, who maybe is the top center in this year's class. Connor Williams coming off an injury is a free agent. He could maybe play guard as well. It's a little bit early from me, but he's also not going to make it back to you, I don't think, in round 2, so you tend to go that route, I guess. Quinyon Mitchell, we all watched that game for Eagles-Bucks, and quarterback help is needed. It could have been worse. It could have been 400 yards for Baker Mayfield fairly easily. Mitchell is the rare potential first-round pick out of the MAC, and he's damn good. He's going to test really well on top of that. Taliese Fuaga out of Oregon State. Yeah, I don't know if the Texans need a tackle, but Dane made a good point. They didn't run the ball that effectively, at least efficiently, I should say. And Fuaga's a great run blocker. So that, and can probably play guard too, actually might be better guard than right tackle, is a valid fit. Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. In this scenario, you're keeping, or Tyron Smith retires, or he goes to play right tackle, backup swing, whatever, or maybe you keep him and give Guyton time to grow. Tyler Smith at left guard and Tyler Guyton at left tackle. And they keep the Tylers as the left side of that offensive line moving forward. Now, today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. Not that many NFL games left, but you can still do daily fantasy made easy for the postseason. They still got their demons and goblins, which are basically just adjusted more than less than. The goblins are harder to, the demons are harder to get. The goblins easier to get, less payouts versus more payouts for the demon side of it. Here's my Packers-Niners PrizePicks slate. Give me more than Brock Purdy passing yards, more than George Kittle receiving yards, and less than Aaron Jones rushing yards. You can have picks for the NFL games, and of course, NBA and other stuff like esports is available. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. All right, Troy Fontenot out of Washington, left tackle in college, probably going to kick inside to guard, most likely, which I think Green Bay could use some help at. I love the value for Kool-Aid McKinstry. Dane says he's got mostly second-round grades from scouts, and I'm very surprised by that. Teams did not throw at him. Malik Nabers allegedly said McKinstry was the toughest corner he faced in college. I think maybe we're overthinking it a little bit there. Plus, his name is Kool-Aid. That guy's going to be a stud. Love that pick for Tampa at 26. Arizona getting some offensive line help. Remember DJ Humphries got hurt late in the season. Kingsley Suamaitai out of BYU played both right tackle and left tackle. There's your bookend opposite Paris Johnson Jr. Jerzon Newton out of Illinois. He's a little bit undersized, but he could be your Chris Jones replacement. Buffalo, 29, Keon Coleman. I wouldn't be shocked if Brian Thomas goes above him because he's a better athlete. But all Coleman does is win at the catch point. So Khalil Shakir can stay at your slot. Stephon Diggs is your one. And now Coleman is, I think, an upgraded version of Gabe Davis. Devondre Sweat, the nose guard from Texas, who was a monster in the middle for the Longhorns, would be a nice fit with Aleem McNeil. Graham Barton can play left tackle at Duke, could be a center guard in the NFL. I think the Niners throw picks on the offensive line. And Jordan Morgan to the Ravens here. Maybe as your long-term Moses Morgan replacement. Or he kicks inside to guard, where the Ravens could also use some help. Round 2 coming up next. But first, don't miss any NFL draft content right here on the channel. Sub so you do not miss out, because we got you guys covered all off-season long. All right, Carolina takes A.D. Mitchell because you've got to get help for Bryce Young. It was too slow of a group on the outside. Bo Nix is pick 34 here. I am not sold on Bo Nix. It works in college. There's a Mickey Mouse offense. Like, we make a big deal about J.J. McCarthy not having a lot of, translatable NFL throws, right? You know who had more passes of 20-plus yards attempted last season? It was J.J. McCarthy. Bo Nix had 1,000 yards on screens. At the third of his passes. It doesn't, just not nearly enough for me. So he's a good athlete. There's definitely a spot for him in the NFL, better than he was at Auburn. I'm not sold on franchise quarterback, though. Chop Robinson out of Penn State here. I think the athletic traits means he could even sneak into round 1, but the production has not been fantastic. I love this combo here. You go franchise quarterback in round 1 for the Commanders. Then you get a potential option along the offensive line. Patrick Paul, whose brother, by the way, Chris Paul, was already on the roster for Washington. A fun little combo there. I think could sneak into the round 1 range. He's listed at, this is all per Dane, and Dane has verified figures. 6'7", 310 with 36.5-inch arms. Freakazoid stuff. Chris Jenkins, I'm a little surprised he goes this early. I think he might be a better NFL player than he was a college player. But he's off the board of the Chargers, who need defensive line help. Tennessee adds Kamari Lassiter. They need cornerback help. Lassiter's a fringe round 1 guy. I like it. Braylon Trice, the edge from Washington. He won't test that great, but he consistently generates pressure and consistently wins against the run and the pass, so I'm fine with that selection. Pair him opposite Kayvon Thibodeau. This pick from the Commanders, by the way, is from the Bears for the Montez Sweat trade. A safety, Tyler Nubin, who we'll see what happens with Cam Curl. I think he's the number 1 suited this year. Packers from the Jets, the Aaron Rodgers trade. Another safety, Jayden Hicks, and the double dipping in the secondary or going after the secondary heavy for Green Bay makes a ton of sense. They need the help. All right, next selection here to the Minnesota Vikings as they stick on the trenches in this mock draft. Rook Orororo out of Clemson. That is how it is pronounced, by the way. The Clemson defensive lineman had a very, very good season for the Tigers, under the radar. Not the heaviest guy, but I think he would fit really well with Brian Flores, assuming he's still there. The Falcons, it'd be a meme if Arthur Smith was there, I guess. Jalen Polk. Yeah. You add him to Drake London, to Jaden Daniels, to Bijan Robinson, to Kyle Pitts, and my God, that's a loaded group. You're giving Daniels everything you would ever need, right? The Raiders here at 44 go with Michael Penix Jr. You, on one hand, saw the negative side against Michigan and the positive side against Texas. The player as a prospect is more somewhere in between there. Plus, there are significant medical concerns for straight season-ending injuries. But you flip the film to having watched as a righty, it doesn't look like it's that weird of a motion. It's a little snappy, maybe is the term I'll use for that there. But look, Penix and Nix are older prospects. McCarthy's younger. You could talk me into flipping Penix and Bo Nix, by the way. But if you had to bet your franchise, your job as a GM and head coach, on one of these 3 guys, who would it be? JJ for JJ McCarthy, MP for Michael Penix, or BN for Bo Nix? Saints adding some offensive line help here, and Dominic Puny out of Kansas. It's a Kansas offensive lineman. Now, we don't see that very often. Chris Braswell, another Bama prospect here. had a nice step forward this past season. 56 pressures, by the way, one more than Dallas Turner. Giants, who might lose Xavier McKinney potentially to free agency. Jayden Bullard out of Georgia. I don't know. I think Georgia defensive player is always a good thing to go there. Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State can plug in at guard. He's played both left guard and right guard, and Jacksonville could certainly use some help up front. The Bengals take Ladd McConkey, who can do some inside-outside stuff to potentially replace one of or some combination of Higgins and Boyd, since at least one of those guys won't be back, I don't believe, for Cincinnati. Junior Colson is our first linebacker off the board here. By the way, Jeremiah Trotter, not in this mock at all. That might surprise some people. I actually kind of get it. I think 50 is a little bit early for Colson, but Eagles also need linebacker help. And I think Colson early, maybe should go 65 or something, so we're not that far off. Zach Frazier, who grew up just south of Pittsburgh, by the way. Late season leg injury. He might have been center one beyond that. I don't know if Pittsburgh needs another interior lineman, but hey, I'm never mad about addressing the trenches there. Ennis Rakestraw out of Missouri goes to the Rams. Physical corner. There is some injury concerns that might raise a red flag there, but Rams need help at the cornerback spot. Kalen Bullock, safety here. All three Eagles picks were corner, linebacker, safety. If we watch that playoff game, it makes sense. They couldn't tackle. Now, it is worth noting that Bullock's not the best tackler. So that kind of raises some red flags, but he gives you a single high coverage ability, and that's always valuable. Troy Franklin, who I think could go earlier than 54, is a speedy burner. It would be a great fit in Cleveland. I would not be surprised if when I'm all said and done with my board, and I got plenty of time to do it, Edgerrin Cooper out of A&M becomes the top linebacker in this year's class. He's a very good football player. I'm not spending a first-round pick on any off-ball linebacker, but Cooper might go down as my LB1. Then there's Jonathan Brooks, and this would be classic Cowboys, and I hate it. Brooks, had he been healthy, would be the number one back taken. He tore his ACL in November. So you're going to draft a running back coming off a torn ACL who, maybe is good to go in the early part of the year, and you're still going to be return to play versus return to performance. He's a good player. Man, I don't know about drafting a torn ACL guy. I mean, we saw how long it took Notre to come back, right? Not all ACL recoveries are the same. That is a Blue Star special for Dallas, and that is not a positive thing anymore. Who is your favorite non-round one NFL draft prospect? The guys who you don't think are going to go in the first round at all. Drop that player name for me in the comments right now. Xavier Worthy to the Bucks, as they got even more speed, which, again, Mike Evans' future uncertain. Kalen King, cornerback help, I love it. I actually like him more than this. I know he was a bit inconsistent. I get some A.J. Terrell vibes. He had a tough time against Marvin Harrison, who didn't. Malachi Corley is, everyone wants to find the next Deebo Samuel. Everyone wants it, and there's really no other Deebo Samuel out there. Malachi Corley did average 9.2 yards after the catch the past 2 years, which is kind of insane, and there's some good similar-ish builds. He's had some really impactful games. Tank Dell coming off the ACL, but he's a fun fit for a Niners-based offense. JT Sanders out of Texas, I love it. Kelsey can't play forever. Plugging him in and letting him grow as a blocker, I think, is a good idea. Cameron Kinchins out of Miami. He was up and down this year. He's a ball hawk, but he's just not consistent enough yet for me. TJ Tampa out of Iowa State, who didn't allow very many big plays, and corners a massive need for the Detroit Lions. We have a Yale offensive tackle here to San Francisco. By the way, nearly 37-inch arms, which is just absurd. I believe it is pronounced Karam Amaghetto. The last name, the phonetic, doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I believe it's Amaghetto. We'll see if I'm wrong on that front down the line. But hey, offensive line help makes sense for San Francisco. Double dip there. And then Darius Robinson, kind of a long-armed guy. Ravens could use some more defensive line help, developmental stuff like that fit for the Ravens. No surprise, I like Dane's mock draft a lot. He does a really good job. He does the work, and I don't think there's anyone better right now in this industry.